Okay.
Hey, good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning. Our conversation this morning is on the power of imagination. And so today is September 27th, 2020. And we're glad to have you join us. I'm going to start with an opening affirmative prayer by Ernest Holmes entitled To Think is to Create. And he says the final creativeness of the universe is a movement of intelligence within and upon itself. This intelligence already exists at the center of our own being. It really is our own being. And the very power of imagination that we exercise is this intelligence functioning at the level of our comprehension of it. The mind within us is the mind of God. And since our mind is some part of the mind of God, there is a place within us where we are universal, or where we use universal power. To affirm the presence of good in our life and to subscribe um, and excuse me, to affirm the presence of good in our life and to use the power within us for this creation of that good, we affirm. So affirm with me in your own voice, in your own mind. We have this possibility within us, for the mind within us is God. We must accept our freedom, announce our liberty, and proclaim our divine birthright. Whatever we believe to be true about God, we must declare to be the truth about ourselves. We must know that the power within us, which is God, is establishing right action in our life. In this way, we will gain dominion and exercise authority. I live in the world of my own creation. Knowing that thinking is creative opens the doorway to wisdom and power. That doorway is already within me. Somewhere within me, the mind of God reveals the truth, that I was born free and that the will of God for me is one of goodness, truth, and beauty. I rejoice that at last I am awakening to this realization of truth. I have the power to use the mind within me in any good way I see fit. I use my authority to create beauty, peace, and joy. And so it is.
Beautifully done.
So Bob came up with the topic today because he so joyously uses the power of imagination. So do you want to start by
I
sharing?
can't imagine. Oh, well, I'll start off with, I think and I'm not promoting it, but I'm just speaking to it. Uh, the book that I've got out right now, the Diary right, Diary of a Mindful Dog. It has just taken off. And what's amazing to me is how it's taken off. You're disappearing here. There you go. How it's taken off, which is just a reflection of imagination, because I imagined a long time ago everything that's happening, but with imagination came a lot of work as well. And so there's really an interesting play here, and you're going to speak more to that, and then I'll add to that, of imagination and determination, imagination and will, imagination and focus. And I think sometimes what we do is we just imagine something and it kind of, it's in one eye and out the other. We don't imagine, it's a fantasy. And imagination, really, to have power, has to have legs. And in the case of the Diary for a Mindful Dog, it was something that I saw, that I then attended to, and then saw more of, and then attended to. But without imagination, it wouldn't have happened. And very few other people in the very beginning of this whole process could have imagined what I was imagining. So you also find yourself in the process of imagining your highest and your best very often by yourself when you're alone. You don't necessarily have anybody along with you. In fact, one of the things that strikes me, I remember Werner Erhard said, as soon as you have a great idea, a wonderful, great idea, your imagination has come up with the most astounding idea, the first thing that will occur are all the reasons why it can't be done. And then what he said, which I love, is now you have your list of things to overcome. You don't have a reason for not doing it. So there's imagination, which is really a powerful impetus to create. And then there's the desire and the will and the determination to support and continue to allow that imagination to have a full life.
Right. The most of us think in images, and
I certainly do.
as a matter of fact, I think psychologists would say we all do. Although I've had some people debate that, but so an image is an idea in mind, and since we share the mind of God, Ernest Holmes says that that must be the creation process. As a matter of fact, I looked up a number of the statements in the Science of Mind book, and it's very clear about that. He says, things are ideas in form. What else could they be? There's nothing to make things from except ideas. In the beginning, we behold nothing visible. He's talking about Genesis there. There is only the infinite possibility, a limitless imagination, a consciousness, the only action of this consciousness being idea. So, unfortunately, in our training growing up, we are told, oh, that's just your imagination. We're not told, oh, that's the power of your imagination. That's a powerful thing. And we try to teach children to distinguish between reality and their imagination, with adults not understanding that that imagination is their powerhouse. That is how they create. And they're not limited by the ideas of what's possible that we are. So, for example, one of the first places that Bob used his imagination is having a dog that talks. Dogs don't talk, but anybody who has a dog knows they communicate, and they communicate very well. So Bob took the leap in imagination to, I'm trying to get right so that I don't disappear in this virtual background,
Get closer.
so that the dog is not only communicating, but he's talking. And so that's a use of imagining something and using images. Uh, but we need to take it a step further, because otherwise we'll do what we learned as children. Oh, that's just my imagination. That's not real. You've all probably heard the saying, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. In other words, everybody wishes for a lot of things, but it doesn't mean that they are going to put the energy, the mental energy, into creating them. And that takes will. Now, Ernest Holmes is very clear about this. He said that will does not do the creating. The image in your mind does the creating. But the will is necessary to focus that attention. So, let's see, I'm going to read the next thing that I found. He said, there's a place in us which lies open to the infinite, but when the Spirit brings its gift by pouring itself through us, it can give to us only what we take. This taking is mental. In other words, you have to accept it mentally. If we persist in saying that life will not give us that which is good, it cannot. For life must reveal itself to us through our intelligence. The pent-up energy of life and the possibility of further human evolution work through man's, or humans, imagination and will. The time is now, the place is where we are, and it's done unto us as we believe. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that will being the focus?
Well, yeah, first off, I'm reminded of a Facebook thing I saw sometime a while ago. It was wonderful, with a little girl. She must have been 5 or 6 or so. And she had just painted her fingernails and her doll's fingernails and a bunch of other fingernails to anything else that lived with nail polish. And her mother came in and said, what have you done? And she said, the doll told me to do it. She told me to do it. She said I had to. She told me I had to. And she's crying, and she said, the doll made me do it. I wouldn't have done it on my own. I thought, God, what a beautiful imagination. And she went on for the longest time. Mother said, are you going to do this again? I don't know, but she's going to keep telling me I have to. And so we have such precious and wonderful imagination when we're young, and then we get stomped out of us, unfortunately. But what I loved about part of that was her tenaciousness of this imagination was just so real for her. We have to make a thing real in our mind and heart first. We have to see it and walk around in it and feel it and say, this is real, this has substance. Then what we have to be willing to do is whatever we can in the direction of having it be a favorable outcome. What is in us? I learned a long time ago when stuck. What's the least you can do in favor of the thing that you want to see happen? Do that. And then see if you can add to that. And then if you can do more than that. But what's the least you can do when you imagine something wonderful to have it move forward in your world? And then can you persist in that? One of the dilemmas we run into, I think, is that we often imagine something and then try to go too far too fast and then fall down and then give it up. And so maybe what we need to think about is not only is imagination rich, but we need to pace ourselves in terms of, well, what can I do? What am I willing to do today that I could live with? What can I do in favor of the outcome I want to see? And I think that's really important all day, all night, every night. What can I do in favor of the best possible me? What can I do in favor of the health that I'd like to see more of? And do that because that supports the imagination. That's the will part of it. You have to be willing to say, I'm in favor of that in my action and in my word, as well as in my imagination.
Now, when you do this, and the more you believe it, the faster things seem to come together. And often, because you expect it to work. And I'm going back to 3 years ago now. It was about 3 years ago now that uh, I had uh, I had attempted another brief career as in mental health counseling, working with addiction, and put a couple of years of hard work into doing what I thought was building my own business and partnership. And that ended with that partner totally taking it away from me. And there was nothing I could do about it unless I wanted to take on his debt, which I did not. So I you know, was floundering around in my depression about that and anger about that, and just started meditating every morning and reading Ernest Holmes every morning. And I realized I really wanted to get back into this teaching, because when you teach what you most need to learn. So when I teach it, I'm teaching myself too. And so we went to a ministers' conference in North Carolina, and we were just, all ministers are welcome. We're ordained ministers, so you're welcome to attend whether you're active or not. And I just said I was going to get back into ministry. I really didn't know how. I thought I might even start a study group in my living room. And instead, the opportunity came to me. Marcia McLean came up and said, my husband and I want to move into another area, and we would love it if you would take over as pastor our group. So, that happened so quickly, from the imagining the situation to the having it come to me, that it was really quite amazing. And that's the way this works when it works. When it works. I didn't have to put a lot of mental energy. I didn't have to concentrate. I just identified the desire, and then synchronously, people, place, and things can come together to fulfill the desire.
We had to sign up for the conference. We had to drive, continue to steer in the direction we wanted to go, be
That's
willing
true.
to say yes when the opportunity occurred, and to hold firm in our mind the mental picture of what it was we wanted to do. And when doing that, other people also can see that. One of the things that I've discovered, and I think we've known for a long time, is that there's a field of thought that surrounds you, the field of energy around you. And you know this when you walked into the room with someone who's really miserable or angry or upset, and they don't say a word, but you can feel that. You sense
The cloud around them.
I'd really rather not sit over here. By the same token, when you have an energy that says, I'm excited about life, I'm excited about a vision that I'm holding, I'm excited about the possibility of something happening in my life that's magnificent and wonderful, people start wanting to sit next to you to find out if they can have a little bit of that, or if they can support that, or they can join that, or you can join them in theirs. Because that energy, that law of attraction is working whether we realize it or not. We form a kind of aura around us that says where we're going and what we would like to have in our life. So the aura that you were showing, revealing, was life is going to be a spiritual adventure of a sort that I'm looking forward to and I'm excited about. Now let's let it happen. But we had to get in the car and we had to drive the distance.
Mhm.
We had to fuel up, all of which I think symbolically is what we have to do. We have to fuel up for
That's
for
true.
the journey. We have to say yes to closing the door to the past, which is what we did when we got in the car and we drove the distance we needed to drive for this new idea to come to fruition.
That's true. So I want to get back to what Ernest Holmes says about will. He says the energy of mind, like other natural energies, already exists. We merely use it. And it is within our province to use it in any way we may desire. We have it within our power to cause it to take varying forms for us. No particular one is permanent. The imagination is creative. The will is directive. Through will, we decide just what we wish to have done. We may wish to use the creative power of mind for helping someone else, for self-help, or for some other purpose. The will holds attention to the mental viewpoint until the creative power has time to work through the law of unfoldment. But in no case does the will become creative. So
Hmm,
that's an important point.
very.
And a lot of people try using willpower to change a habit, for example. And I've got to tell you, willpower is limited. It's limited. They've even measured it. They have psychological studies, and it totally depends on how much energy you have. And if your energy is dissipated through other crises or other things that you have to give your attention to, the willpower diminishes too, accordingly. And so that's why most people cannot change a habit through willpower. It runs out. But it is a focusing agent, but it's not the creative agent. So the important thing to remember is that our thoughts are the creative thing. Now, Bob is teaching The Power of Personal Reality, which is a Seth book,
Nature.
The Nature of Personal Reality. And Seth says that all ideas that we have, if we don't focus on them long enough for them to come into our experience, they go off and have a life of their own
Mhm.
in another probable reality. And that says everything we think becomes a reality on some level.
We're actually living in a thought world.
Yeah, it's really
And so,
interesting.
what is your thinking is really a really much more important piece than I think we often think about when we have negative thoughts, thoughts that impair our well-being, thoughts that interfere with our sense of value. Those thoughts go out and have a life of their own as well and look for things like themselves. And so, as we begin to affirm our life having quality and having value and having beauty, that then surrounds us and comes back to us and unfolds us, which is really a beautiful and natural thing.
And Ernest says that you can use that will to protect you too, to guard those things. He says the will is given to us to protect ourselves with. Nothing should be allowed to pass into the creative currents of our thought until the will has first admitted it. The will must first analyze, dissect, and then decide what it wishes the inner imagination to work on. True spiritual work will strengthen the will without exhausting the mind. If our mental work tires us, then we're using the will in the wrong way. The right way would be to determine to think peace, whether there appeared to be any reason to expect that peace would be forthcoming in the experience. So I thought that was a great lesson for us now at this particular
Hmm.
time, when what's going on in the world of politics can be crazy making, literally crazy making, because we're powerless. And if we oppose it, if we oppose the ideas, we're powerless to change it at this very minute, not long term. We certainly have the power long term. But so
But
what
we
we need to do though, and instead of getting upset if what's going on politically we're opposed to, we need to know peace. We need to know harmony. We need to know it, feel it. Those are the ideas we focus on. We cannot let ourselves be dragged into uh, upset and anger, and all that does is bring misery to us. So detach from the news, detach from the from the television if you have to, and know the truth instead. Know peace, harmony, joy. And that's what will be your experience, regardless of what's going out in the world. And then you help create that in the world. That's what your will helps to create rather than chaos.
I watched a man in our condo go to his car after shopping, and he decided that he would do something that which we often do, and that is to carry all of the bags with one trip from the car. And he had, probably 5 bags on one arm and 4 bags on the other arm and one on his head
Mhm.
as he was rushing to get to the condo. What was interesting was I've seen this man before object to any heavy lifting. And what was impressive was how much heavy lifting he was doing.
Mm.
What's possible is we can do a lot more heavy lifting than we think that we can do when we have an intention to do that, when we have a desire. We can change things at the thought level by holding that thought. We have the strength to do that. We have the strength in mind to create a world that works for everyone. And if we don't think that that's true, then of course it's not true, or at least it's not true for us and we're out of the running. We all have the capacity to lift a great deal more physically and mentally than we thought we did. And that's an important piece to know.
So I want to go back to the statement that true spiritual work will strengthen the will without exhausting the mind. When we teach our practitioners who are professional prayer partners and spiritual counselors to know that if someone else's problems that they're praying for, if it's in any way bringing them down, they're not doing it right, because they need to know the truth about the person. In other words, they need to see them as physically well, whole, happy, peaceful, joyous. And when they imagine and have that picture and see it and feel it and use their will to focus on that, it also brings that to themselves. Do you see what I mean? It makes oneself whole, healthy, peaceful, joyous, and free. And so when they do their spiritual work, they're actually helping their own consciousness as well as helping the consciousness of the individual. Sometimes the individual is so deeply in fear, as we do become with when our personal health and our personal relationships and our loved ones are ill or need help. But another person can imagine that scenario going perfectly well without feeling the fear. That's why they can often be more instrumental in bringing about the prayer results you want than you can yourself. Even Ernest Holmes had a practitioner, because when we're in fear, we're not doing our best spiritual work. Do you see? So,
When I was asked to go to the hospital to do treatment for, do some prayer treatment for a woman who was in hospice care. The family asked me if I would go and do treatment for her to be in less pain. And I said, certainly I can do that. So I went to the hospital and I asked her, I said, would it be okay with you if I saw you as whole, perfect, and complete? Would it be okay with you if in the process of this treatment that I'm going to be doing for you for pain, you got better? And she said, well, I didn't know that was a choice. I didn't know I could actually live any longer. And I said, well, then let me do treatment for the highest and the best for you. And if it's okay with you that you get better, let's know that that's also going to happen. A year later, when she was out of hospice care and still living, and she gave me a call and said, can we have coffee? That was the day that changed my life, you see, because I couldn't imagine living, and my family couldn't imagine my living either. And I
mm,
thought the treatment was going to be about my dying, and you did treatment for living.
yeah.
And I think that's we're often treating for less pain rather than for joy. We're treating for things to get a little better rather than for things to be grand and wonderful and amazing, because inside of ourselves we can know that truth. And when you said we have to know that, if it's hard work, if I had to go into the hospital and treat for her with sadness and worry and fear and hope that I could get this treatment done for her before she died, I'd be killing her in my own way. And so that's important to check in with your own prayer, the prayer you're having for yourself. Is it an exciting prayer? Does it affirm you? Is it a prayer that when you get finished with it, you're thinking, that was really good. Boy, do I want more of that. Or was it a prayer that said, please, no more pain, God, no more pain, okay? And was it a sad, forlorn, begging kind of prayer?
And sometimes, you just have to ignore all circumstances.
Yeah.
We always can know the truth, regardless of how bad it looks. When we were working in mental health, we were working with eating disorder patients, and we had a man who became anorexic. Now, that's rare. Mostly it's women who are anorexic because they're the ones who focus on wanting a very thin body. But this man had had a construction accident and fallen a long distance and really hurt his feet. So standing was difficult for him, and he lived alone, so he couldn't cook for himself. He just would rather not eat than have to try to get to the kitchen and do that. So, at any rate, he became very ill after our treatment, and he was in the hospital with collapsed lungs. And they really thought he would not live, but they were going to try to do surgery. So I went in to see him, and I really didn't even know what to do. He did not believe in our religion, our philosophy. And, nobody likes to go in to visit somebody that is pronounced, they said they think he's going to die. But I went in and I had done some Reiki training. So I just decided I wouldn't say anything. I said, I'm going to do a little healing work for you, okay? And he said, yes, that's good. And so I was just moving my hands over his body, seeing him whole, well, healed. And I got my hands starting at the top of the head, not touching anything, but above the body, got down to about the abdomen when his surgeon walked in. And the surgeon walked in and interrupted everything. He said, what's going on here? And we said, oh, nothing. We're just visiting. And anyway, I found out later he did survive that surgery. And I talked to him later, and he said, oh, when your hands got above my lungs, I knew I would make it. So, that's not, that was partially my imagination, but then he got the picture too. He
Mhm.
got it and he accepted it, and he got well.
And imagine him going into surgery knowing for sure he was going to die and wondering what the outcome of that was going to be.
Really? Yeah.
So unfortunately, we often get what we have in mind, which we don't realize because we don't realize we have it in mind.
He later, by the way, he came to see me. I had private practice, came to see me for a while. He was depressed. He survived, but he was still depressed and couldn't walk well. He won the lottery.
Mhm.
Not the statewide lottery, but a good one. And he became not depressed after he won the lottery.
Money is not the cure, but it doesn't hurt.
So good on him. Good on him.
Yeah, really.
So did you want to talk about that? Yes, we need to.
Yes.
We
Well,
have
one of the
1 minute.
things that we want to let you know is that we are the Center for Spiritual Living, and we do accept donations. And this is the place to go to make a donation. If you go to that website, you'll be able to see a place where you can donate. If you win the lottery, of course, please donate. And doesn't happen often, but it could happen. So I'm wondering if you could
Close this.
close us with a
Yes,
prayer.
I will.
Judith is really on today. Did you notice that? She's really good today.
Well, you can't lose with Ernest Holmes.
Yeah, really.
So let's go within and know the truth about ourselves and our loved ones and our nation and our world. We know that the mind within us is the mind of God. And so all solutions are available to us. Mankind is evolving and has the ability and the knowledge and the know-how to change all the conditions that are seemingly negative at this moment. So we see this world as evolving into a wonderful planet, a safe, a secure, a healthy planet in all its systems. And we know that we have the ideas to create this. We give thanks for those who are creating movies like Thrive 2 to show us ways that we may participate in bringing about this transformation of our planet and our lives and our world. We see it as we would have it be, and we know that when we focus on that with our will, that brings it about. We give thanks for this knowing. We give thanks for our blessing.
We give
We
thanks
give
for all of you out there.
we give thanks for each one of you, and we release it to the law of mind and know that it is done. And so it is.
Go ahead.
It helped to, let's see, it helped to be able to see. Ah, there it is. Thank you.